Cyclone Narelle makes landfall in Queensland. Tropical Weather Bulletin for March 20th. So the top story right now is that Cyclone Narelle made landfall in the northern part of Queensland on the Cape York Peninsula in the last few hours as a strong Category 3 storm on the Saffir Simpson Scale, Category 4 on the Australian scale. Elsewhere around the world right now, not too much going on, but there is another area of interest to Narelle's east into the Coral Sea that now has a 50% chance of developing, could be a threat to New Caledonia. The Atlantic, of course, quiet with 73 days still remaining until hurricane season begins, so make the most of it. A nice little system there in the eastern Atlantic, though, to look at. Obviously not tropical. The eastern Pacific, you can see again a few bits and bobs of cloud and in general a few showers across the whole region there, possibly affecting the Hawaiian Islands as well. 57 days until the hurricane season begins over there in the eastern Pacific. In the Westpac, things are still pretty quiet there as well. There's a little tropical disturbance down towards the bottom right there. That would be probably over the eastern part of Micronesia. Some thunderstorms blowing up, but really nothing to write home about. Chances of a low pressure, weak disturbance in the next 7 days over there. North Indian Ocean, nothing going on here either. A few thunderstorms blowing up from a little system there in the central eastern Bay of Bengal. Even thunderstorm activity across India is less than what it was yesterday. 1 or 2 isolated thunderstorms. In the southwest Indian Ocean, obviously looking out always for another system here, but nothing at the moment. Just a few scattered thunderstorms across the ocean, and looking towards the Australian region, of course, which is where it is all going on once again today, with Cyclone Narelle recently making this landfall, now moving inland over the Cape York Peninsula, will be out over the Gulf of Carpentaria pretty soon, and then it will continue on to the Northern Territory, still a Category 3 at this point, with cyclone warnings in effect. And there's that 50% chance system that's going to be swiveling mostly in a southerly direction. Here's Narelle right now, 120 mph winds and a pressure estimate of 943 millibars, 13.4 south, 143.2 degrees east. Cyclone Watch now in effect for the Northern Territory as well, from Nullanby to Port MacArthur. It is currently 31 kilometres from Archer River, which will be getting some strong winds right now. 59 from Cohen, which pretty much dodged this storm, at least the worst effects of it. 71 from Lockhart River, 171 from Weipa, and 708 from Nullanby. Here's the forecast from the Bureau of Meteorology, showing that the storm will weaken to a Category 2 Australian scale, then back up to Category 3 before it moves on into the Northern Territory, and that warning for the Gulf of Carpentaria coast extending northwards to Mapoon. And looking at the model spread there as well, still looking quite good actually. Only the very end of that period, I think that's day 4 and 5, we start to see a little bit of divergence in the models, but still not that much. It looks like it's going to go pretty much straight.
So that you're always in touch with the latest tropical cyclone updates, as well as following us on social media. And you can also join our Discord server for tropical weather chat at any time on discord.gg/force13.
So let's take a look at the latest satellite imagery right now. Of course, here it is, Cyclone Narelle, that landfall sequence, and now moving inland, jogging northwesterly pretty much during that whole period as well, as that imagery stutters a little bit. Let's take a look at that full sequence on the Zaire infrared imagery there. The storm was looking really good in the early hours of the 19th of March. That would have been Thursday, of course. That was UTC. Gets very confusing. So about 12 to 18 hours ago, it was looking extremely good, reaching its peak intensity of around 145 miles per hour, and it's weakened and the eye has really clouded over quite a lot, although it looks like it has managed to sustain that eye without an eye wall replacement cycle during that whole period up until that landfall, and now real signs of weakening beginning. The storm losing radius of those cloud tops and certainly radius of the wind field. We estimate that it's probably diminished by 40% already in terms of the wind field radius since the storm's peak. Still some really high cloud tops around that eye into the minus 80s, but the eye itself still very shallow now at this point in the minus 70s in terms of temperature depicted on the satellite imagery. This here is Invest 98P, that's the other one we're talking about. It looks like it may be traceable already, getting closer to Solomon Islands. I do believe that is that system, yes. And slow movement towards the south will speed up over the next few days as it possibly gets itself going and wraps up into a tropical cyclone. Could get pretty strong as well. Looking around the world, the picture everywhere else. Big frontal system well off the US East Coast. It's not moved very much in the last 2 days, has it? But it has now cleared the United States completely and most of Cuba, but still trailing edge of it there, just about over the central and eastern part of the country. In the Eastern Pacific, things looking very quiet indeed there. Hardly any weather to speak of, to be honest. Over Central America, though, a few thunderstorms brewing all along that region. Central Pacific, really disorganized mess, to be honest. Hawaii is somewhere underneath all of that, probably getting some light to moderate precipitation. Looking towards the Western Pacific, and you can just see how perfect that day to night contrast looks there as we're just about passing the equinox now. And in the Indian Ocean, nothing going on much in the Western Pacific, and nothing much going on here either. You can see that little trail of thunderstorms parading from west to east over the Bay of Bengal. Southwest Indian Ocean, we're looking at a little cyclonic thing going on inland there over Mozambique. That looks to have completely diminished by this point. A few little thunderstorms over the western part of Madagascar. The Australian region, a very wide zoom out angle on this one. You can just about make out Cyclone Narelle. It was never the largest storm, but certainly has gotten much smaller. Big extratropical system that's just passed at New Zealand in the last 24 hours. That was once Invest 97P and is now continuing to push out towards the southeast. And just in case you want to have another look at the Mediterranean after that subtropical storm the other day, there is another little system that's just been pushing out southeast of Italy and heading towards Greece at this point, but certainly no indications that that is anything. Sea surface temperatures looking pretty good for the Atlantic ahead of the hurricane season. Still a long way to go till we get there, but 26 degrees Celsius waters already extending well into the Gulf of Mexico and out beyond Cuba into the Atlantic Ocean proper. Off the coast of Mexico, 28 degrees Celsius already licking the coastline there, but also extending out over the water as well. A little bit of a dip in the middle there, but warming up further west. Western Pacific also looking rather good in the deep tropics, 28 degrees, one or two spots pushing 30 at this point, and 26 degrees extending to cover the whole of the Philippine Islands and just about reaching the southern part of Taiwan. In the Australian region, a few areas now at 30 degrees Celsius along the coast, including the Gulf of Carpentaria, which is where Narelle is heading, and also for parts of Western Australia out there too, which Narelle could also have some kind of influence over. Interestingly, it's slightly below average, those sea surface temperatures along that northern part of Australia, but where Narelle is right now, certainly for the first part of the Gulf of Carpentaria crossing, it will be about 1 degree above average. Western Pacific looking pretty good in the tropical zone there, one or two spots out towards the Central Pacific, 3 degrees above average, and the Atlantic subtropical zone is looking very healthy indeed, with the tropical zone only just above the average mark. Oceanic heat content is looking pretty decent here as well. This is current. Not too much has changed since the last time we looked at this in the bulletin yesterday, but decent amounts escalating throughout the Western Pacific, and the Eastern Pacific, I would say, is ahead of schedule looking at that there too. In the Southern Pacific, obviously looking towards 98p now, very high amounts of oceanic heat content initially, starts to drop off a cliff very soon, so it needs to take advantage as quickly as possible whilst it can over those very warm energy areas. Very high energy areas, I should say. Looking out through the short-range compute models up to day 5, there is Narelle weakening overall, moving just north of Groot Island and then into the Northern Territory, weakening, barely holding on as a tropical storm, but then coming back again as it ends up moving over water once again, passing by the Kimberley and then over the Indian Ocean, where it looks like it will strengthen once more to hurricane equivalent status. That would be probably Category 3 on the Australian scale at least. There's Narelle moving off shot, and now this next system, 98P is what it's been designated, and there it is, 50% chance we're giving it right now, and becoming quite a strong storm. GFS certainly has been pushing for this system more than any of the other models. It is still a bit of a 50-50 split as to the model guidance. I believe it's the Euro that isn't too keen on this yet, and the Icon and the CMC and the GFS are quite keen on it. GFS scenario there brings hurricane force winds not too far off New Caledonia and really blowing up into an extratropical system later on. Looking at rainfall expectations across northern Australia, well, you can certainly see the track of Narelle quite clearly there. And it looks like in one or two spots along the western part of the Cape York Peninsula could reach nearly 20 inches of rainfall. That is 500 millimeters, and according to early estimates, possibly areas near Darwin could get some significant rainfall amounts there as well, getting up above 250 millimeters, with some areas closing in on 500 millimeters as well, although probably more rural spots along the coast to the southwest. But still, that is very far out, and still question marks as to what the actual track will be. Of course, Darwin already had a close call this season already. Longer range then, looking towards day 6 to 10, look at that. Narelle becoming a major equivalent once again. That would be category 4 or 5 on the Australian scale, and then rounding that corner, following the coastline quite a distance, and then it does look like it starts to sweep back towards the coast towards the end of that 10-day period. It is a fair way out. There will be uncertainty about this forecast. It is weakening by that point, but it is heading back towards land. There's a tiny tropical cyclone there that's trying to form off New Caledonia in that period as well. It looks like it does succeed, and another small one off Papua New Guinea that tries to merge itself in with another system competing. Eventually, a larger tropical cyclone, and by day 10, it feels like a bit of a deja vu, but further south with this potential next storm. This would be the third one now, reaching the coast of Australia, possibly near Cairns and Townsville.
Check out our store page for Force 13 related merch, as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request by you. Also, if you like our work, please check out our YouTube memberships. Check the join page on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/force13/join.
Well, let's venture into the fantasy range then, and we're still looking at the same areas, 11 to 16 days out, and you can see there hurricane equivalent force winds passing very close to Perth once again, like it was 2 days ago when we were looking at this. GFS then backed it out towards the west, and now it's brought it back east again, and a very mature extratropical cyclone there going on to affect Antarctica as a matter of fact. But look at that, way down there in the southwestern tip of Western Australia, you will be getting winds of 120 kilometers per hour if this model run is anything to go by. But don't forget, it's the fantasy range, massive room for change, and usually they do end up getting picked up and thrown out further west. There's that second system, that other tropical cyclone that's still speculative at best at this point. It dies off very quickly after it moves inland, but certainly that would be a bigger worry, I would say, probably, in terms of population areas that will be affected by this one, as compared with Narelle, which is obviously much stronger, but has affected very small populations so far up the Cape York Peninsula. Something to watch out for there in that long range, but I wouldn't take too much heed on that just yet. Well, around the world, you may remember this one. It was March 20th, 2019, when we had an active period in the southern hemisphere, the southwest Indian Ocean, or the southern Indian Ocean in particular, with Cyclone Veronica peaking today towards the end of the day as a strong Category 4 on the Saffir Simpson Scale, Category 5 on the Australian scale, and there's an image of it, in fact, video of it from the International Space Station. Beautiful. Also, Trevor had made landfall over the Cape York Peninsula, was much stronger before this point, was down to a tropical storm, and Savannah was on its last legs as well, was also a much more powerful cyclone. 22S would become Joanina. It's that naming list again in the Atlantic, gives you nightmares of when we last used it in 2020. The first name is Arthur. The Eastern Pacific will start with Amanda, and in the Central Pacific the next name on the list is Lala. In the Western Pacific the next name is Sinlaku at this point, and in the North Indian Ocean it will be Arnab. 22 storms so far in 2026, 26 storms in the 2025-26 Southern Hemisphere season. In the Australian region, the next name now is Oran, the Southwest Indian Ocean, Indusa, and in the South Pacific, it's Vayanu. A little break now. Our next tropical weather bulletin will be on Tuesday night.